Honda and Porsche both are blaming electric cars for multiple things. I'll get to the Porsche story in a minute. Porsche is saying their financial woes and this crisis they're facing, it's the fault of electrification. Honda is blaming EVs for cancelling a $15 billion EV investment. So Honda's saying, right, this is really funny because Honda's saying an EV slowdown is the reason they're cancelling their $15 billion investment in Canada. Porsche is saying EV sales increasing are the reason that they're in trouble. These automakers are just completely talking out of their buttholes because it's so ridiculous. They're contradicting themselves constantly. Really, it's quite nonsensical listening to them. And honestly, you've got to ask yourself the question, would you feel comfortable investing in a company with the CEOs that are flip-flopping all over the place? Like, really, they're no different to the former CEO of Stellantis, where these guys just don't know what I honestly don't think they know what day of the week it is. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. In April of last year, Honda, well, they unveiled plans to invest 15 billion Canadian dollars, which is just over 11 billion US dollars, into an electric vehicle supply chain in Canada, which would include an EV plant and a standalone battery factory in Ontario. Why Canada? Well, it's cheaper to make cars in Canada than it is in the United States. Fast forward 12 months, and the automotive industry is a very different landscape, thanks in part to Donald Trump's return to the Oval Office. CarScoop says, as a result, Honda is now pushing back its Canadian EV investments by approximately 2 years. That means, in automotive speak, that means they've cancelled them. I mean, saying 2 years later, obviously, who knows what's happening in 2 years? Things will completely change by then. In a letter sent to Honda's shareholders by Honda, the automaker attributed the delay to the current slowdown in EV demand. Is that actually true? Is there a slowdown in EV demand? Well, actually, no. Electric car sales have increased this year by nearly 30%. So this is just farcical. The company reassured investors that it's keeping a close eye on market trends, but stopped short of providing a specific timeline for when the project will get back on track. Now, if you're saying, well, Sam, you're wrong because actually EV sales haven't gone up by 30% in America, you'd be right, but they're still gone up by 10%. You can't really call that a slowdown, can you? Honda's CEO, Toshihiro Mibe, explained during a quarterly evening earnings press conference that the company will need to observe what is happening over the next 2 years before making any final decisions on the timing of the project. Meanwhile, Honda Canada spokesperson Ken Chu told CTV News that there are no plans to cut production or jobs locally despite the delays. Now, obviously, Honda is going to be facing a real legit problem because 25% tariffs on cars that are not made in America that Honda sells, plus 25% tariff on all the parts that Honda is sourcing from outside of America, that's a big problem for them. But also, the demand for Honda's cars in the biggest car market in the world, China, has collapsed. Their sales in China are falling almost every single month. That's Honda's biggest problem. And that's got nothing to do with this mythical slowdown in EV demand. Honda claims the postponement is due to a slowdown in EV demand. And the reality is that EV sales are rising in both Canada and in the United States. In fact, battery electric vehicles accounted for 11.4% of all new car sales in Canada last year, 11.4%. Anyway, demand hasn't accelerated as quickly in the US and Canada as what I thought it would, but it still is increasing. So it's clear that electric car sales are going to continue to rise, not go down, as what Honda is claiming. Honda's $15 billion commitment was previously hailed by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as the largest auto investment in Canada's history. And the plan called for a battery plant with an annual capacity of 36 gigawatt hours and an EV assembly plant capable of producing up to 240,000 vehicles annually starting in 2028. Obviously, that's not going to happen now. Honda confirmed it would shift some of the CRV production to its plant in Ohio to mitigate the impact of President Trump's tariffs on the company's operations. Here's what he said. There is room to increase the production capacity in the United States, and we are trying to look into what will happen as a result of that, said the CEO. In the midterm, if the tariff measures are to be in place for a long time, then we will have to increase our production capacity in the United States. Now, a lot of people think Honda is safe. They think bankruptcy for Honda, never going to happen. Honda is going to be great. They're actually, Honda and Toyota, they're the two companies, the two Japanese car companies that are doing well. And, that's actually kind of accurate. I can't argue with that at this point in time, and I won't even try to. Subaru, Mazda, Nissan, they're all screwed. They are. But Honda and Toyota are certainly doing much better today. However, let's be real. In China, you can buy any Honda you want. You can buy there's plenty of Hondas you could get in China that you can't get outside of China. And I'm going to tell you right now, you've been to China, the EVs that Honda have in China, they're not too bad. And even the ICE cars, they're pretty good. They're better than the ones you can buy in Australia anyway. They're cheaper. What about Toyotas? The Toyotas you can buy in China, they're not too bad. I mean, a lot of them are most of them are built by Toyota's joint venture partners, and they make better cars than Toyota does, in my opinion. Better EVs, that's for damn sure. But are people buying them? Are they? I mean, in China, where there's hundreds of models for sale, are people buying them? Well, I think you all know the answer to that. And the answer is no, they're not. Their sales are going down. Are they still selling cars? Yeah, absolutely. More of the budget price cars, more of there's some certain segments where they still are selling cars, but their sales are continuing to fall. And that's what happens in a truly free market. A market where, the truth is, there is more choice in China than in any other country in the world. Prices are very competitive. And in that market, where there's so many options, those guys are struggling. So what happens in the rest of the world when this starts to change? What happens when there's, 300 different Xpeng, BYD, Zeekr, Geely models that you can buy outside of China? What happens then to Toyota and Honda? What happens to Toyota's $200+ billion of debt? Honda does have their own debt as well. And that's why they're battening down the hatches. That's why the entire Japanese automotive industry, in fact, is, very, very concerned for their own existence. In fact, probably one of the reasons why the automotive industry in Japan is now claiming that the Chinese are being racist by slowing down in the purchase of their cars. In fact, this comment has been made numerous times in Japan over the past few years, saying that now people in China are being racist towards Japanese cars, which is absolute lunacy. In fact, if anything, brands still matter in China, just not enough anymore.